Hi everyone, Slamphony Jam Tano here, the internet's busiest music nerd, and it's time for a review of this new Little Simz album, Stillness in Wonderland. Little Simz is a UK rapper and songwriter. This is her latest full-length LP. She has a few projects under her belt at this point. She had a couple great tracks off her last full-length album, which made me curious about this upcoming one. Thought she would come through with something big, conceptual, and interesting on this one, and in a way she did. Now, I'm not going to be taking on this record solo. I'm actually going to be talking about this album with a fellow YouTube album reviewer, Mr. Tabby. You can check out his YouTube channel down in the description. We're going to hash it out over this record right after the transition. And here we are through the magic of the internet. It's Tabby, fellow YouTube music reviewer. We're going to be talking about this new Little Simz record. Give me your general thoughts on this album, please.
Sweet. So yeah, I've never heard of Little Simz before in my life. So it's like through research, she's a British rapper, and so I went into this album with like no expectations at all, because I didn't know what to expect. The album cover drew me in first because it's like really well illustrated. So it showed a concept to me already, so I was kind of interested. And then I got into it, and I was confused the whole time, I think. And I listened to it again. Her journey is just a little weird to me, I guess. And it's hard to follow sometimes when she is in Wonderland, which is kind of the main theme of the album, that she goes to Wonderland to escape her problems, is what she develops. And it's just hard to tell when she's in it and when she's out of it. And then there's these interludes that tell you when she's about to go in and when she's leaving. And it's like, I don't know, it's as indecisive as she is on the record to me, like the flow of the story. I feel that she doesn't know what she wants the whole time, and because she doesn't know what she wants, she goes to Wonderland, still doesn't know what she wants, and then leaves with the prerogative of not letting her people down, which is how the album starts with that song, Let My People Down. And that kind of threw me off too, because that sonically is completely different from the rest of the record, because a lot of the record deals with a fusion of like trap and jazz kind of
and soul combined. Too. I mean, that sort of indecisiveness you were talking about, I think, runs also through the album from a musical standpoint too, from a stylistic standpoint in a little bit.
Yeah, exactly. But that's what I liked about the instrumentals, at least, because those were interesting, how indecisive they were, because it carried that theme. I just think she personally didn't execute it as well as the instrumentals did, if that makes sense.
I don't know if, I mean, I will agree to the extent that I enjoyed the instrumentals on the album more, than I guess I enjoyed her vocal performances, especially from a singing standpoint. Tracks like Let My People Down were particularly rough as far as singing on the album. I feel like Little Simz, her last record, while it wasn't bad, it had its moments. I feel like she impressed me a little more consistently on that album as far as her rapping. But I feel like on this record over here, she's kind of given into that pressure that I feel like a lot of rappers have on them right now to sort of be a jack of all trades. You need to be songwriting, you need to be writing lyrics, you need to be rapping, and you also need to know how to sing, or you need to be singing too. And I feel like she sort of dipped her toes into that water without being as skilled a singer as maybe she should have been. And there were also moments on here where I wasn't really all that impressed with some of her vocal guests, with maybe the exception of Sid on the song Shotgun. I liked Sid on Shotgun quite a bit. There was that one track, I can't remember which one it was. The dude on the track who was singing this really redundant chorus about like how he wants to make this top 40 hit or this song that you really love, and he sort of sounded like this BJ the Chicago Kid clone, and that just really kind of bugged me.
Is that with Sir, One Rotation or One Rotation?
Yes, that's exactly it. Thank you for bringing that up. You know, I'm sort of feeling the same indecisiveness that you were throughout the record, but there is at least a whiff of a concept here. To me, I didn't quite see it as a story album as much as it was just kind of a general ode. And maybe this is because she doesn't sort of assemble it in kind of a logical flow type of way. I sort of saw the record as this general ode to becoming woke I guess, in a sense, because it seemed like there were those moments where she was, like you were saying, letting her people down, sort of ignoring these issues that were sort of glaring her in the face. And then as the album finishes, she sort of has this, I guess, epiphany that she should be, I don't know, taking part in sort of saving the world, or I guess putting more effort toward fixing what's wrong with the world. How exactly she is going to go about doing that, I'm not really sure. And that's what I think, that the album isn't really a solution or like a silver bullet to any of the issues that sort of were itching at her. It was more of just like this process of like actually starting to care, you know, actually starting to put these issues to the forefront of her mind, as opposed to just kind of ignoring them and let them just go in the background unannounced. And it's sort of addressing the elephant in the room, I guess.
Sure, and that's why I grew to appreciate the first track, because her and the feature Chronics with a double X, that they point out a lot of leaders of different movements in like history, and then her saying all these legends are looking at her to like make a difference. So that's why I grew to appreciate the first track more, exactly for that point, that she is getting woke and realize that she could be one of those people. And yes, I agree that this album's not like, this is my solution to help. It's just like, maybe music is her way. So this is like her album to say, my music will eventually help. I'm not sure.
I mean, yes, there are moments where it seems like there's a little bit of illusions of grandeur as far as fixing things, or maybe, you know, the pressure to fix things is like, oh, these legends want me to do this, or it's my music that's going to do it, you know, which does kind of bug me a little bit. But I mean, overall, I do like the idea of the concept of this album in general. It's just that when I feel like we get deeper into the track listing and we get down to the nitty gritty of the record and what's being said, we do have, and I don't know if you agree with me, I'm not particularly familiar with your opinion on this artist, but I feel like you'll understand where I'm coming from here. There is like a bit of a J. Cole effect going on, where it's like you could tell you could tell Little Simz is trying to get to the heart of these really important issues, and she's certainly concerned and is aware, but the lyrical content is just kind of weak. Like, it's not like she's saying anything all that poignant when it comes to some of these issues, or you have songs like One Rotation or Doorways. I mean, One in Rotation, both of which are kind of like these half tracks where you sort of get this beat change up and it turns into an entirely different song at one point, which it kind of loses the momentum a little bit, in my opinion. Yeah, it just feels like there's concern there, and she's certainly aware of the world not being as great a place as it could be, but there's just kind of a lack of lyrical content to create any urgency or just make you feel like, whoa, I'm like really wrapped up in this, or, you know, she's really saying something significant about this stuff.
Exactly. No, I actually had that exact same thought when I was listening about J. Cole, the style. And I think it's just because she's so to the point with her lyrics. Like, they're pretty much just sentences. It's barely any wordplay. There's barely any, like, you know, things that make you have to go back and re-listen to it, because she's just saying to the point bars the whole time. Yeah. So, yeah, I think I completely agree with that statement.
Yeah,
for sure.
I mean, the lyrics are a little meat and potatoes, which is why, you know, when I do get impressed by her, it's usually her flow. She can rap pretty fast, and she's like, you know, certainly on tempo, and she's, you know, got some really tight flows going for her.
Oh, yeah.
But then it's like when she works in her singing voice, it does like kind of drop off for me a little bit. Not to say that there weren't tracks where lyrically, or I guess as far as like her performance rapping, that didn't impress me. There definitely were tracks like Picture Perfect I liked a lot. The track Zone 3 I thought was really great, and the song King of Hearts, that kind of posse cut that she had going, where I feel like she really kind of stepped up her lyrical game a little bit, because she had two other like really great lyricists on the track, and those were songs from her first album that I was like, wow, you know, she's gonna probably come out with something great around the corner, you know. But I feel like she's sort of come through with this, I don't know, somewhat indecisive concept album that some of the tracks are just like really weak and underwhelming. Meanwhile, there are other cuts where it seems like she's going hard, sort of like Bad to the Bone, but just struck me as like really corny, unfortunately. Like, not only because there was just kind of a lack of interesting lyrics on the track, but just the chorus of that song was really weak, in my opinion. I don't know.
I agree. No, when you said Picture Perfect, that's my favorite track of the album for sure. Like, it's just in your face. It's a banger, like the only banger on this project, I think, to me. But that's the track that made me like really, it snagged my attention right away. But it's, it's the halfway point of the album, so I was kind of disappointed that that was the track that got me going, oh shit, here we go. But it's halfway in the album. And King of Hearts too, like that's the track that made me think this was a story album, because it seems like she was taking over Wonderland. Like, she got there and the Cheshire Cat was saying, watch out, you're gonna get into some bad shit. And then she became like the leader, the queen of hearts, and said the king isn't going to rule anymore. I'm going to rule, and I'm going to like snatch off heads. And I really like Chip's feature. I think he fucking killed this track. Like, when he got that Henry VIII bar at the end, that shit was awesome, and his flow was really good the whole time. I thought Getz was kind of though. Like, I just thought some of the stuff he said was corny at the end. Like, I thought sweet, but I said corn, or whatever he said, and like his voice was a little jarring to me.
If you're familiar with Getz, you kind of come to expect those kinds of bars a little bit.
Okay. Yeah, I'm not really familiar with any British rappers, so that's just me not researching. So it was really like the way he was rapping, it just sounded like a car that wouldn't start, and I was just like, whoa, where did this guy come from? And then he was just saying these really weird things after the two really good verses that Chip and Simz had. So I was just kind of thrown. But I can definitely see why he has like a fandom, or why he's viewed as a good rapper, because he's got like a very different sound. But yeah, his feature was the one on this album. I was just like, what did I just hear?
As far as other highlights for me, I mean, like I said, Shotgun with Sid, which is not one of the harder tracks on here, more of a neo-soul kind of vibe to that track, a little more pretty as far as the instrumental goes, a little jazzier. The song Poison Ivy 2, which was, I thought, a pretty good like love song, or at least kind of struck me as a love song. Those are two tracks that to me were like, okay, she's not going aggressive like some of my favorite tracks from her last record, but these tracks are like good melodic rap tunes that could, potentially cross over. And that was sort of another point about the record for me. It felt like there were so many moments here where she was trying to write a track where it was like, this will appeal to people who wouldn't normally listen to my music, and it seemed like in so many attempts at doing that, we're left with so many tracks that are just like, so uninteresting, at least to my ears. It felt like this album was trying to do so much, and unfortunately the best parts were the moments where that would have just been good moments from her last record, in my opinion. Those moments where it felt like she was just playing to her strengths rather than trying to stretch herself thin with the singing and the pop fusions and the concept. Maybe only if she had worked out a couple of those things, then we would have had maybe a stronger concept and stronger tracks throughout. I don't know. I feel like I'm just kind of making suggestions at this point. The album, while it does kind of tie up the concept a little bit toward the end, aside from Poison Ivy, there's not like a whole lot on the end of this record for me musically. Again, the concept is certainly there. She does kind of tie it up, and at No More Wonderland, you do kind of have that realization. But aside from like a couple of verses on those more aggressive tracks, a couple of those crossover cuts, and the instrumentals on this thing. And, I'm not taking away from the beats. The beats on this thing are lavish. They're immaculately produced. The unfortunate thing is that Little Simz is just not the one stealing the show a lot of the time. It's usually the instrumentals that are a little more interesting than her. And the interludes, while, some of them do add to the story, there are others that just kind of sound like a total mess, unfortunately. So I wouldn't say the interludes were like, all that necessary either, for the most part, as far as like making the album entertaining. Certainly they add to the concept, but the concept itself could use some work. So yeah, I mean, this record, I was really kind of torn on it, really a mixed bag for me. And it seems like you kind of feel the same way.
Yeah, I completely agree. Especially with the interludes, because it just made me feel like this was supposed to be a story album, and it just wasn't. And like the whole time I thought the story was, trying to avoid problems and go to an imaginary land where problems don't exist. And there was like the relationship element of her talking about how she doesn't need a man, but then she was talking about how she's in love with a man. So that was another layer of indecision. So yeah, I listened to this thing, I don't know, 3, 4 times before doing this with you. And each time I'm like, you know what? I'm just missing something. It'll click. And I don't know. It just didn't yet. And I don't know if it will. Because if she did Picture Perfect and King of Hearts, if she had that swagger, that confidence she has behind her voice, behind her flow, because like her flow, like we said, is present the whole time. Like she has good flow, but not as good of a delivery as those two tracks, in my opinion. And if she had that kind of delivery, that confidence, that explosive in your face stuff, the whole project, I don't think I would have been as confused. I think I would have really liked this project, not to have that one tone the whole time, but just, I don't know, it just seemed like that's the only moment she had, like, okay, I got this, guys. We're good. Because every other time she was just like, the beat's on, I guess I should rap now. I don't know. That's just being cynical, but,
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it sort of sounds like you're a little torn on the project like me. I'm feeling a strong 5 to a light 6 on this one. Unfortunately, didn't leave this album as excited about it as I was going into it. I don't know if if you want to sort of put a stamp on this as far as your overall feelings on this.
Yeah, I guess I don't have a rating system,
Yeah.
but I would suggest people listen to it at least give Picture Perfect a listen. I think that's a really good track. I think it's a good party song. I think this album as a whole is a good project to just leave on the background, maybe like a party get together, because it's not bad music, but it's music that you necessarily don't have to pay attention to. I don't think it's a good introduction to British rap. I think there's definitely other artists to go to. Skepta's Konnichiwa was really good for me, and that thing is awesome. But yeah, this project, I don't know. You can listen to it. You can avoid it. I don't think you're going to miss out if you don't listen to it. But if you want to give it a shot, go ahead. I'm not going to stop you.
All right, I want to thank my guest Tabby for coming on and talking about this new Little Simz album with me. His YouTube channel is down there in the description, which you can check out, subscribe, watch his other reviews. You do live, raw, in the moment reactions to new albums, very raw. All, of course, very energetic, very in your face, and wanted to have him on and just nerd out with me over this record. Thanks for coming on, dude.
Thank you for having me.
All right, forever.